Mr. Brad Bickmore, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dom. How are you?
Good, good. All the way from Woodlands, Texas, you're joining us.
I know it's technology's crazy. Can we can talk to each other from across national borders?
Across borders, across the country, across the world. And you know what? We're really talking about the business of business anyway. So we
Exactly.
could
Yeah.
be, yeah, we could be,
Universal language.
that's right. We could be sitting across from each other at a coffee shop or in airports on the other side of the country. But today you're here to talk to the cabinet makers world, which is crazy. Before
Yeah.
we get into that, Brad Bickmore, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these cabinet makers across the world?
So, like you said, my name is Brad Bickmore. I'm a CPA here in the Woodlands, Texas. I've been in public practice, well, a combination of public practice and industry work for a little over 10 years. So, spent some years at a big four firm, some more at a smaller local firm in Houston. And then I did some time as a controller for a real estate developer. And now I'm back in public accounting, work primarily with construction contractors of various sizes.
That's why you're here.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Throughout my whole career, I've been working with contractors, but kind of developed that focus, especially after my controller position.
Yeah. And you were an auditor for a while as well.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm still in the audit department.
Oh,
I
okay.
do a little bit of everything now, just based on the size of our firm. So I primarily work helping clients get their financial statements audited, if they need it for a bank or a surety bond or something. But do a lot of client accounting services, consulting type stuff, a little bit of tax when needed. Although I like to pitch that to the real experts whenever I can.
What you mean is you like to take your vacations. You don't want to work crazy right up until tax time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that I found, and you might find this as well, is that as a company grows, as it transitions through different phases of growth, their accounting needs change. They go from we don't have a bookkeeper, we don't kind of need one, to my wife does my bookkeeping. And it could be your wife, could be your father-in-law, could be your next door neighbor,
Hmm.
somebody's good with numbers. And then they
Yeah.
sort of realize that's not working for them anymore and they just evolve. Is that what you see as well?
Yeah, for sure. Because throughout my career, I've worked with contractors of various sizes, various types, general contractor, subs, all that type of stuff. And so what I found, yeah, usually they kind of start out, like you said, someone who's good with numbers. And so that kind of gets you what you need a little bit. But what I found, most people think an accountant's job is, to do the numbers. You got to be good at math. You got to speak numbers essentially. But in my opinion, an accountant's job is really to provide timely and useful information for decision making. Now, most of the
Yeah.
time, it's going to be financial, it's numbers based, but it's really about getting you that information that you need to be able to make the decisions to, continue your business, to grow it, et cetera.
Yeah. It's funny you say timely and useful info for decision making. I was hired by a private equity firm. So these are serious guys putting their own money into buying it. It was a construction distribution company. And I remember sitting in the meeting where we were launching the PE firm, the private equity firm, and the ownership team, and then the leadership team that was actually running the company. And I've never heard anybody more serious than when their CFO said, I demand reports on time and accurate. And like there was zero gray area in how he spoke.
Yeah.
Just zero. You just listen to the guy, you're like, oh my God, that is so serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of money on the line. They take it extremely seriously.
Yeah. I admired it though, right? He was open and honest about that. And I've seen companies who on the other side have not had good reports. It doesn't matter the size of the company. You could be $100,000 first year startup, but you don't have good data, good reports. You don't know what your sales are. You don't know what your expenses are. It's just a frustrating place to live. You don't know if you're doing good or doing bad or going in the hole or
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And you kind of mentioned it. He was deadly serious, but he knew exactly what he wanted. And so sometimes when people are starting out, they don't really know the type of information that they even want.
yeah.
So that's another good place to start. I've kind of, in my mind, simplified the type of information that you're going to be looking for into three different types. And the first one is, and you touched on a little bit, where are we at right now?
Mm.
What are our sales? Are we reconciling our banks to see, what kind of cash do we really have on hand? Some clients I work with, they do bank reconciliations, but they don't really go into and identify Yeah, they might have reconciling items. Is that really an outstanding check, or did something get double booked? You want to know how much money you have to spend.
Yeah, can I just put my hand up like a student? But
Yeah,
I want to
go
do
for
this
it.
on behalf of everybody. So people that don't know, we're doing the podcast as a video as well as an audio. But so I just put up my hand like a kid in the back. Because people come to this podcast with different levels of business understanding. Can you tell me what a bank reconciliation is? Because that's new language to a lot of people. What's a bank rec?
Sure. Yeah. So most people have probably at least heard of like reconciling your checkbook as well. Same practice. So um, you have your financial information. Maybe you're keeping it in QuickBooks, maybe Excel, maybe in an old school notebook ledger. And then you have the bank who's also got their set of information.
Mm,
And usually at the end of the month, you want to go and see, okay, the bank says I have this much money. My records say I have this much, like a different amount of money. Why are these two things different?
mhm.
And so usually that's going to be made up of two things: outstanding deposits. Doesn't really happen so much anymore now that most people are paid. Well, it depends on the scale, I
Electronically.
guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
electronically. So there's not a lot of lag time. But if you were to go on the last day of the month and deposit, a bunch of checks, chances are they're not going to clear the bank till the first or second. So you might have put in your system that you have an additional $5,000. The bank doesn't have it yet. They'll show it on the first. But if you were to look at the statement on the 31st, it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
The other thing is going to be outstanding checks, and that's kind of out of your control a little bit because you could cut checks on the first of the month, and people could get them and just let them sit in a drawer for months, sometimes years. You
I
never
know,
know.
crazy. And then go cash it when you least expect it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to be sure that you've at least recorded somewhere that you wrote that check, so you don't go spending that money in case a year down the road someone finds, oh, what's this envelope, and they open it up and, oh, free money, and go cash that check. It's because it's going to come out of your account.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of a bank reconciliation. You just want to make sure that you understand why your records aren't going to match the bank's exactly. And it's fine if they don't, but you just need to understand why.
Well, and it's important to do that step because I've had people that I've spoken to. I don't want to say my clients because hopefully we're beyond that at that point. Or, but they get a check from a customer for an install. They've just completed a job. They get a $60,000 final payment, so they get the last $6,000 hold back from an account. They're like, "We have $6,000," and they think that's theirs to go spend, but they don't realize that again, you have 6,000 in the account, but it's about to get taken away. There's other expenses that have to come off. You don't actually have $6,000 left. You've got
Yeah.
some reckoning to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how complex the accounting systems are for most of your listeners, but if you're also tracking your receivables and payables, so um, those things aren't, it's cash that you haven't received or cash that you're going to need to spend.
Mm.
So it won't be part of your bank reconciliation. But like you said, if you know that you pay your vendors on the 15th, just making sure that you have enough cash to cover that in the meantime, because you don't want to come to the 15th and find out that you spent it
Yeah.
all.
Usually they're the hardwood supplier and the trinkets supplier, the slides and the glides. They train us up pretty good on that because you're going to
Yeah.
get that invoice no matter what. You just paid for all this stuff on credit, and now we're going to come and get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I took you off your game there. You wanted to. The first stage was where are we now? So you want to know sales, cash
Yeah.
on hand, bank reconciliations.
Yeah. And the last piece of that, I guess, and it'll depend on the scope of the job. So cabinet maker, I'm not sure how long a job typically goes. If it's a couple days, couple weeks, or maybe longer. But if you have long-term jobs, like I work with some concrete subcontractors, so they'll have jobs to go for months
Mm,
because they're doing a whole parking lot or
right.
something. And so if you're not keeping track of your job schedules, so how much have I spent on this job and on what, materials, labor, and how much have I billed? You're going to be, a hurt bag at the end of the project if you can't square up. Have I billed everything for this? You might be missing out on some good money.
Yeah, that's an ulcer causing question right there. And to
Yeah.
answer your question, for somebody that's doing kitchen cabinets, the time lag for doing everything can change just depending on
Hmm.
the scope of the job. Sometimes you
Yeah.
win a job and it doesn't even start for a year, right? But then if you've got a job that's going to start right away, that could take 2 months. Then you've got the architecture millworker side where they could be doing a huge project that has multiple elevations over long periods of
Hmm.
time, and they really do have to track those things. And yeah, it varies a lot in this industry, a lot.
Okay. Well, that kind of feeds into my next piece a little bit. So once you've kind of got a handle on, where are we right now, you're getting that information, you're good. you probably want to start going back and looking. So how have we done? How do we do? You've had an episode about doing quarterly reviews.
Yes.
I mean, you can do that more or less often as needed, but just being able to go back and say, okay, here is my original budget on this job, both
Mm-hmm.
for billings and for cost of materials, cost of labor, everything that goes into that. You know, did we do exactly on the budget? Probably not. So why? What happened? Did materials prices go up? We didn't buy it out soon enough. Was that something that could have been in our control? Um, you know,
Yeah. And
basically what went wrong and why, and what went right and why. Maybe you got some cheaper labor than you budgeted for. Or are you going to use those guys again?
yeah. Just for everybody listening, this what Brad's talking about is what we refer to here as the EOJ, the end of job report. And Brad, you probably already know that I do horrible attempts at humor. There's an article I wrote for Forbes magazine called the Leprechaun Report, and because it's a client of mine actually named it that years ago. He goes, "This report's like finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow," and so that's where the
I
Leprechaun
like that.
Report came. But it's just the end of job report, which, by the way, I know this is your entire career, but it's boring.
It is. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, there's just better, like, not better things. There's more exciting things to do in a business than go back and look at a job we just finished. But that's actually where the money is.
Exactly.
Because you already pointed this out. Where did we do well? Where did we make up time? Where did we make up money? Where did we lose time? Where did we lose money?
Yeah. Yeah. Sidebar, you're talking about humor. I know you like to start out with dad jokes on your thing. So I looked up some accounting dad jokes, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
were honestly too bad to share. So I'll spare you. But I
Well,
just
that's
wanted to let you know
perfect. Those are I wish you'd had them. Those are the perfect
that
jokes.
they're out there. I've already shut them out of my mind. They were not good. Maybe you can find some later and share them. But anyway, back on track.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you figure out where or like how you've been doing, then the next step, and this is what I feel like you probably work most with your clients. This kind of goes beyond a bookkeeper or accountant. Sometimes maybe this is more a CFO or controller or like a finance professional,
Yeah.
either contract or not. But so where do we go now, and what type of information do you need for that? So
Mm.
um, setting goals, like here's where I want to be. Now,
Mm.
how do I get there and work on that? Okay. Um, Planning for capital expenditures and repairs. So you may know that you're doing well on your current business, but let's say that you got a fleet of vehicles, of trucks or something. Eventually, they're going to need, they're going to break down. You're going to have to buy new trucks. Is that factored into your budgets going forward? Are you reforecasting based on your results to see, okay, things didn't go as well as planned. We need to adjust for that. Do we need to bump up margin
Yeah.
on other projects? Um, so that's more of a different skill set than the typical bookkeeper. But as you scale up and want to figure out where you're going, that's the type of information that you're going to need.
Those are incredibly important questions. I mean, just as you talked about going back and changing your margins on different products or services, one of the easiest places for us to do that in this trade is change orders.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I win the job at, let's say, a 35% margin, I'm not obviously going to share that with the client. There's nothing secret, but I don't like to tell them the profit level. But if I'm doing a change order inside that account, I don't have to bid that at 35% as well. That can be charged out at a different rate. And I'll let everybody out there listen. Just for clarity, in case anybody's taking this the wrong way, it should not be billed at less than 35% for the change order. It should be more. But
Yeah.
those are opportunities that certainly exist for increasing your profitability on a deal for change orders that were introduced after we had all of our shops and elevations done. Okay.
Yeah. And that might vary based on your contract as well. I see some change orders that come through just at cost, and that might just be because, contractor error. But yeah, always try to make sure that you're getting at least your original margin on that change order, because it's part of the job. So you should be making that same profit on it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but then you have to go redraw everything. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to go back to the line, the production line. That has to get done. The project manager has to manage it. There's additional paperwork and hassle that goes along with it. And so quite often change orders are not tracked well inside a company. And for anybody listening
Mm-hmm.
who has a change order challenge, I'm just going to tell you, go look there, because there's money inside. There's money under that rock. Can I just say that? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how common this is. It was common in the commercial real estate world where I was working, but those are much larger scale projects. But a lot of budgets will also have a contingency line item built in. So maybe you do have something that you kind of have to eat some of that cost, but it might have been already incorporated into your original budget that you have bid out.
You mean from the GC? They have a contingency
Yeah.
that they didn't tell you about.
I mean, it's told about, but it's just kind of understood. There's going to be some wiggle room. Things are going to happen, so we just want to make sure that there's not a funding issue. So
Yeah.
it's usually not super significant, but it is gives you a little bit of breathing room.
Well, the builders need it as well, right? Because they need a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of wiggle room if door frames get built at the wrong size. They need to have some allowance that happened, and now we've got to deal with it later. You can't assume that the whole project's going to go right. But one of the things that I do see missing on the architectural millwork side, the guys that are doing more complicated, complex installation
Mm-hmm.
projects, is that they often don't go back and ask the question the right way to access the contingency fund when it's needed.
Yes,
Did
that's
I say that
very
right?
true.
Because you could say
Yeah,
contingency fund, but if the GC you're dealing with doesn't use that set of words or that doesn't fall under their rules for doing it, it's not going to happen. So you have to find out from them what the right phrase is for them
yeah,
to go, oh yeah, we do have a fund for that.
yeah. So that's another piece of information, I guess, is to know your customer or your
Yeah.
contractor or whoever you're working with to know how you can maximize your margin within that project and
Yeah.
what's all available to you.
Yeah. When you see people going through the different phases of the business, what are the flags that you see that say, yeah, and you might see this from a different perspective. The question I'm trying to ask is, what are the flags that tell you it's time to change your accountant or change your bookkeeper? But maybe you see it from the other side. What are the frustrations people come to you with and say, Brad, it's time for us to change. This is happening. That's happening. This is not happening.
Sure. But yeah, so that first step, where are we at right now? Usually, you know, you can pick up on that pretty quick. You start out, you're really good at making cabinets, but you're not good at the financial piece. So from the get go that you need to get someone in there, like you said,
Mm.
a brother or a wife or somebody who can just kind of do that for you. Um, it's when you start getting to you're not sure, where's my money at? How much money do I have to spend? I'm not sure where my money's going. That maybe you need to get someone who has some training or history doing that type of stuff, is a bookkeeper essentially, because they're going to know where to, if you spend money, was that on materials? What job was it for? Like they'll be able to track that for you. So if you're struggling to get that type of information, then that would be the first flag to move on to somebody else.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I have seen actually from an old business partner, I asked for a financial report and what I got looked like a printout made in a Word document. And that was the point when I was sure things were going off the rails.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're no longer
Yeah.
business partners, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope not. Yeah. If you don't understand the information that's being given to you or it looks like junk,
Yeah.
maybe try, maybe you don't need somebody else, but run it by someone who does have the experience and see if they can make sense of it. And if they can't, then yeah, probably it's probably time to move on.
Probably time. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm helping a client with a cleanup project, and the owner's put a lot of his own money into the business, and the previous people who were working for him they're trying their best. I'll say that, but they anytime he put money in, it would get coded to different things. Sometimes it was coded to he's loaning the business money. Sometimes it was coded as a contribution of funds, like an equity type thing. It was just all over the place. And so he had no idea at any given point, how much money have I put in here? Because it was in two or three different spots. And
Oh,
so we're working on getting that put together.
formalized.
So
Did he
yeah,
have signed notes for the money he put in, or did it just go in as
no, just
yeah?
just putting money in because I mean he's just trying to keep his business afloat, which is
Yeah, of
fine.
course. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing formal. He didn't put a note agreement with an interest percent or anything. He just said, I need to put money into my business. And they recorded it various different ways. So it was just hard to track for him. So
Yeah. Can we
that
stop
among
there for a
other things.
second?
Yeah,
Do
go
you
ahead.
mind? I know this wasn't our original topic, but there are
Sure.
people listening now that are in partnerships or people that
Yeah.
are funding their business through, lines of equity in their home or an inheritance, and they might be in
Mm-hmm.
that same situation. And you just talked about having a note with an interest rate given to the company for money that you put in. Why is that important? Well, it's easy to not do, by the way. As soon as you
Yeah.
say you want a note being a credit agreement with the company, you're going to get some resistance internally. Why are you trying to lend the company money for a return?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a huge return, but anything that you can get formalized in writing makes it more official. If you're, I mean, hopefully never, but if the IRS or whatever the Canadian equivalent is decides that they want to audit you and they see that, there's this money being put in, it's a loan. Are you charging interest? Loans earn interest. Well, no. Well, do you have a loan document? No. Okay. Well, this is treated as something else. Then it's just it'll end up being up to them to just kind of decide. You can argue and make your case, but if you have nothing to support it, then ultimately they're going to be able to make whatever decision they make. So the more formalized, signed, notarized, any type of
Yeah.
stuff like that you have to back it up is really going to help your case for that.
Yeah.
And even if you're just charging yourself 1% interest or less or something, as long as it's written out that it's a formal agreement, then it's a lot easier to support your claim.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong here, because I am not a financial professional, but let's say that I did have a note, an agreement with the company that I was going to put in $10,000 at an interest rate of 1%. I could still at some point in the future say, I'm not going to charge 1%. I'll just take the 10,000.
Correct.
Right? So anybody that's having a discussion with a business partner about putting in their personal money when the other partner isn't, and the partner says, why are you going to charge an interest rate? At some point in the future, you could, if you chose to, not take the interest rate. But please do put a note in place, because that money gets lost as soon as it goes in the company, and you're just not, doesn't it, Brad? It just gets lost.
And that was his concern. He said, okay, I put this money in. Well, now we're at a good spot where I can start taking it back out. And they're structured as what's called a C corporation. And so if he took dividends as opposed to repaying that loan, that's more income for him to be taxed. So you don't want that. So we have to make sure that, everything was, if it was put in as a contribution, it's taken out as a dividend. If it was put in as a loan, and just tracking all that. But that's a specific reason why you'd want a loan rather than just putting your own money in. But there's other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell that some of my questions come from painful personal experience, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah. But it happens. And, the key here is, and I want to remind everybody listening, that this show is about being a business person that just happens to be a cabinet maker, an architectural woodworker, a mill worker. It's not about being a better mill worker, and it's not about being a better accountant. It's about being a business person who just happens to run a cabinetry company. And so to that end, we're here to make money. We're not here to make cabinets. Cabinets might be what you love making, but in return for that passion, you get paid. And so there's professionals out there like Brad and other accounting professionals who help you make the money after you've received the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm never going to know all the ins and outs of the rules that somebody like you does, because you do it every day, all day. And you've seen a gajillion situations that I'm never going to see.
Yeah. Yeah. In the same, you wouldn't want me making any cabinets either. So we'll stick to what we're good at.
That's true. Yeah. That's a good point. Have you seen any situations where somebody doesn't really want to let go of the finances? Like it's a internal person. Let's say it's my wife is doing the books, and we've now decided it's time to hire an accountant, but my wife doesn't really want to let it go to the accountant. What does that look like from your side?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I know a lot of times, especially when you're first starting out, you want to get a family member because it's someone you can trust.
That's right. It's the trust factor.
You don't want to turn over your finances to just any old Joe off the street.
Yeah.
And because, you're just getting started, they're easily accessible a lot of times with their family. So you can kind of work with them, but it's rough because then you never want to like fire your wife. It wouldn't bode well. So it's tough conversations, but hopefully, the trust was there for the finances to begin with. Having that conversation with them to say, we're hitting the next step of our business. We need someone who has the, formal training or expertise to do this. And hopefully they're understanding.
Well, this is one part of the business I happen to have seen thousands of times, right? As I take companies through that transition. And quite often the person helping, so in a lot of cases, it's the wife or the girlfriend or a family member. Quite often they're doing it as a favor to you running the business. And of course they're going to be nice and say, no, I love doing it. But once you take it away, they say, oh, okay, thank God that's over. I'm so happy. Like I got other stuff to do. That's what you hope for. But it really does happen. And then the other thing is quite often they're over their head. Nothing against them. but their formal training is in something else,
Yeah.
or they're retired, or everybody's got a different personal situation. But at a certain point, like you said, I don't want you building my cabinets. No offense, but I do want you counting the money that my cabinet making shop is producing.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Each of us has a specialty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What what are you seeing as a trend going forward in the accounting world as people are growing? Are they getting bookkeepers and accountants earlier in the phase, or are they still waiting a little bit too long?
I'd say on average, people are probably still waiting a little too long because
Mm.
the cost factor can kind of scare you off. Because if you have your family member, like they might be doing it as a favor, you're not
Yeah.
paying them, or you're
Yeah.
you're not paying them the what you would pay a person who has the training to do it. But one benefit though is that a lot of firms, including mine, are really ramping up client accounting service type, like a business sector. And so if you can't afford a full-time bookkeeper, or maybe you don't have enough work for a full-time bookkeeper, you need someone to do something a couple hours a week as opposed to 40.
Yeah.
There are firms and CPAs and professionals out there who that's their whole business is maybe they specialize in contractors and they say, okay, well, we can help you for that 4 hours a week that you need, and it's going to be much cheaper than going out and hiring someone.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to look at something like that, and maybe they can bridge the gap until you need to bring someone in house full time when you've scaled up.
Yeah. I've heard the term fractional CFO.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah. I
ever
just
use
heard
that?
that for the first time recently, and now I
Oh,
feel like I'm
really?
seeing it everywhere. So I don't know if that's a new buzzword, but
Well,
yeah, but it perfectly describes what's going on.
yeah. It's called the your RAS, your reticular activating system. I'm getting all business coachy on you right now, but once you learn a new concept or see a new thing, you suddenly start to see it all around you. It's like when
Yeah,
you buy your new Toyota Sienna in a certain kind of blue. You're like, this is the greatest color blue ever. And then as you're driving around, you're like, oh my God, other people made the same great decision as me. They've all got the same blue. That's your reticular activating system. But
all right.
it's called a fractional CFO. It's somebody who you still get the skill set of a full CFO, being chief financial officer or a senior accountant professional.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not paying them for 40 hours. As you said, it's 4 hours a week or 4 hours a month, but you still get the same skill level. You just understand that you're going to contract a certain amount of hours. It's a great transition
Yeah.
step, actually.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and knowing kind of where you are in that step, do you need a fractional CFO or do you need a bookkeeper or someone along that spectrum? Probably the earlier on, probably more of a bookkeeper type, but as you start looking to the future and doing more strategic planning, then yeah,
Yeah.
having a CFO would be very helpful.
You're if somebody out there listening now isn't getting reports on time from their, let's just say, bookkeeper at that basic level, could be accountant, whatever. But if you're not getting your reports on time from your bookkeeper, is it time to look around for a new one?
I would say, yeah, timeliness is crucial for decision making. So if you don't know how much cash you have at January 31st until March 31st, that's 2 months lag time that you could have, if you had excess money, you could be putting into your business. You could have bought a new piece of equipment to do more jobs. You could have hired more people. It's just crucial, especially today with,
Yeah.
most information is just available, snap of a finger. So you shouldn't have to be waiting too long. Some things, I mean, obviously, things take time. Nothing's going to be instantaneous, but if you constantly are feeling like you don't have enough information, then yes, I would suggest looking around for someone else who can help you.
It might be time. Sometimes
Yeah.
the question comes up about the platform, like QuickBooks
Mhm.
Online, and then some of these proprietary things like what's it called, Bench, and some other ones. What are your thoughts
Okay.
on all of that?
So the bulk of the clients we work with where we do client accounting services use QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. I will say the online version is not particularly well suited for contractors who have lots of ongoing jobs. You can kind of finagle your way into
I
making it
hope
work.
QuickBooks is listening to this episode, because you from your side, you're not the only one saying that. It's crazy that they're
Yeah,
not the same, but they're just not the same.
yeah. The desktop version, you can get a contractor specific module that is much more robust. And so the ones I've worked with that have that, you can have job level reporting. It's much easier to go back and see individual jobs, how you did, and have that type of information. So if you're dead set on using QuickBooks, then I would recommend the desktop. But if you only have a couple jobs going on, the online version is pretty user friendly, although the
Mm.
desktop version is becoming more and more. similar. You can link up your bank accounts, so it's automatically pulling in all the information for you, so you don't have to worry about manually keying in all your transactions every day. Um,
Yeah, I've
that's the one that's the most common. I'm not familiar. What's the other one you said?
oh,
Bench? I
there's
haven't
a
heard that.
company called Bench, and there's some other ones that are, they have their own proprietary bookkeeping softwares because of course they want you
Hmm.
in their system.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of the other one, but yeah, either way, you should be able to transport your information from one system to the other. Just I don't think it's as easy when you're on the proprietary ones.
yeah, yeah. QuickBooks overall is very good. That's the one. I mean, there's a reason it's the one that most people have heard of. It's got a little bit of everything, but it just might not be super specialized. So especially as you grow your business, you might outgrow QuickBooks at some point.
Yeah. I've had on numerous occasions financial people inside companies tell me they're on the phone with QuickBooks all the time trying to get things solved. And I wonder often whether that's more of a bookkeeper issue or a QuickBooks issue because it's a professional software company that knows how to run these things.
Yeah.
And so I'm never quite sure. I always have to ask myself to hold back a little bit when the bookkeeper says, I'm on the line with QuickBooks every day trying to figure this thing out. Their system is broken. So a little bit of me is thinking, is it really QuickBooks that's having the problem here?
Yeah, it could go either way. Sometimes, anytime there's technology involved, there's the chance for some hitches to take place. So there are times where maybe the bank information gets disconnected or there's a delay or something. But I think once you get used to working around in there, I don't know if you need to be on the phone every day. So
Yeah.
maybe that's another flag. If your bookkeeper is on the phone with QuickBooks every single day,
Maybe
maybe
that's a
get a
flag.
second opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, thank you so much for this. Obviously, you got a depth of knowledge, and it's nice that you're in the construction field too. I like your examples. If
Yeah. No, this
somebody,
has been great.
yeah, if somebody wants to find you in this big wide world, I know you're in Texas, but obviously you work with people outside. Do you work with people outside of Texas as well?
I primarily work with people in Texas, although I do some work with companies in San Antonio as well as just outside of Houston. But yeah, I mean, with technology the way it is now, there's no reason that I have to
Yeah.
be in the same room all the time. I'm always happy to come visit, but
We're not in the
um,
same room. Look at us. We're having a great
no.
conversation right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to reach me, my email is bradb@haneycpas.com. So that's BRADB at HAYNIECPAS.com. So that's first name, last initial. And then our website, haneycpas.com or haney.cpa, I believe works now.
Okay.
Um, so there's a list of we have locations all across the Southwest. So we have a large presence in Texas and various cities, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Nevada. So, if you're looking for something more local than the Woodlands, Texas, maybe one of those offices could help you out too. So,
Fantastic.
most of our construction work is probably done. We have some kind of everywhere, but a lot of it is done out of Houston and San Antonio.
Perfect. Well, Brad, thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. The cabinet making world tends to get overlooked. And
Oh
yet
yeah,
it's such a critical piece of all construction projects. Really, what we see when we walk into a building is the cabinetry and the architectural millwork and all the finished wood, right? That's what we see. And we tend to
yeah,
forget that trade. Um, so I love it when I can bring some value here that people typically don't have
yeah.
access to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if it's done wrong, you'll notice it. But I guess if
Oh
it's
yeah.
done right, then you probably aren't going to notice it. So I'll have to keep that in mind and start trying to keep an eye out for that stuff.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thanks, Brad. I appreciate you having on here, and maybe we'll have you back again one day.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.